We are now recording to the cloud. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight to discuss time management and calendars. I apologize, my dog is eating in the back, so if you hear some crunching and munching, it's just Sammy doing his thing. So before we jump in, I did want to ask everybody about time management and why they might think that this is a good skill to have.
Do you want us to stay out loud or in the chat?
Out loud, please. Unless you can, and then chat's fine.
Because without it, I would be spending too much time on things that aren't important and too little time on things that are.
Okay.
I would be having mental breakdowns.
That's very fair.
I say it's important because I personally have a lot going on, and without it, I wouldn't get nearly all of it done, and a lot of time would go wasted or too much to the wrong things.
Okay.
For me, it allows me to plan on doing the things I need to do so they don't sneak up on me and I get anxious.
All of those are very awesome reasons. I know for me, I think I just have so much going on all the time between classes, internship work, that I would feel so overwhelmed, just like trying to remember it all. And I'm sure things would go unremembered and they would just get so messy. I'd be so stressed. So one of our change makers, Bria, is not able to join us today due to work, but she did send me in her responses to some of these questions. So I did want to share those with you guys, or you folks. I'm trying to be better about that myself.
Sam's thirsty.
Yes, I wonder if I can even see those responses though.
Yeah, but if you click on the chat button, those responses.
Yeah, I might not be able to while we're in presentation, so I might have to run through those after. Completely fine. We're making this up as we go.
Yeah.
In the best. So some of the benefits of time management include a lot of the things that you all mentioned. Increased productivity, reduced stress, improved self-esteem. You achieve that balance that's so hard for most of us to achieve. You're able to avoid burnout. Some of the things that like I mentioned, like I again just couldn't imagine trying to manage my schedule without the help of a calendar. And it also helps you accomplish your goals. Sarah?
And then some of the time management tools that you can use are calendars, either physical ones or digital ones. List apps, there's all different kinds of apps now to help manage different tasks. And then accountability partners, somebody that's gonna check in with you and be like, hey, you're doing the stuff on your list, gotta get it done. Planners and alarms, little reminders. And then just like everything else, you got to prioritize and schedule the tasks. So go from urgent, what's most important, decide what order you want to do it in, delegate, and then get rid of it. Cross it off your list.
This is the first time I've ever seen this like graphic ever, and I feel like I've participated in so many life skills building seminars, and I've been in so many like college classes, and I've never seen this, but this is so helpful, like such a helpful breakdown. So that's all we had for our very short slideshow. So now we just kind of want to engage. I have to figure out how to get out of this. Okay, is it gone? Okay, so we just had a couple questions that we wanted to engage you all in, and I'll copy and paste these in the chat too. But the first one, kind of just round robin style, is how do you personally keep track of your calendar? Some of those, like what methods, some of those methods that Sarah just mentioned, do you utilize?
I'm gonna apologize. My partner's dog is outside and having a great time barking at squirrels or whatever's out there. So if you hear her, I'm so sorry. How I manage my time, I use white dry erase calendars. I have 3 months on my wall so I can see 3 months in advance what I need to do, what needs to get done. But other than that, my schedule is pretty consistent. So anything out of the ordinary, like a doctor's appointment or a Zoom meeting with an advisor, I remember. I still write it down, which I think helps. But since it's out of the ordinary, I remember it. I will admit that this method probably won't work forever because my brain is getting very full. But right now, that's how I do it.
That blows my mind that you remember that stuff. Cause like I don't know if it's like a OCD thing for me or what, but like if I don't, it better be in my calendar because then I'm scared that I'll forget it. And then I'll check it like a bazillion times. Is that right? Am I going at that? Yes, it's in there. Okay, don't have to worry about it. So that always blows my mind. And I do that. So I have these huge post-it notes that I put up, and I put like 3 months. So I like have projects. So I have like that all kind of listed out in the priorities. And then I have events. And then I have like I forget what I call it, but like the basically next up stuff. So I can have that in my mind. But as you know, my post-it note fell off the wall on me during a meeting a couple weeks ago, and it is now laying on the bed behind me that I have hidden with the thing here. And my cat has been enjoying laying on that large post-it note. Mhm.
I use physical and digital calendars. I'd say I use physical for myself because I like writing. Writing helps me remember things. I write it down like if a professor says something, I'll write it in my notebook for that class and my planner. But my partner with ADHD really prefers it digitally because that way it can also be an alarm. So it's like if he has a doctor's appointment at 3, it'll remind him at 2:30 that day. Because for some people it's hard to remember to even open that planner because I know for some people it's like, okay, I wrote it down, but I'm not checking it till the next time I need to write it down. So I think depending on the type of person you are, um, physical or digital are really good ideas.
Do you use like a calendar app, or do you just use like Google Calendar or?
Yeah, just Google Calendar, so it's tied to my email. So like if I'm on the computer, it'll give me a little notification in the corner there. If I'm on the phone, it just pops up on my phone like an alarm.
Mhm. Tilly, I totally agree with you because I love writing stuff down because it helps me to like remember it better. But I'm also the kind of person like if you write it down, like I know I did it, but then if I misplace it or I might forget to open it, like you said. So I totally get your point on that. That's a good point to kind of use both.
What do
Yeah, I
you?
think. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Nope.
I was gonna say you could also like set alarms to remember to look at your physical one, like every day at 8 p.m. You know, like check planner,
Mhm.
and then you can look at your planner. That way, it also becomes consistency in a routine because every day at 8 o'clock, you'll be like, it's planner time, even without needing your alarm.
I love
It's
that.
just about
Yeah.
building the consistency. I feel like.
Totally. I completely agree with you. Consistency is key. It really does help because you kind of need that mental alarm clock then too by doing that. Good point.
Sarah, did you want to share what you use?
Did you say my name?
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I write a lot of lists from what needs to get done first to what I can wait on. Usually personal stuff is on the bottom, like I need to do self-care, which sometimes should be maybe towards the top, but I guess delegating tasks is very important to me, especially when I'm stressed out. I struggle with that sometimes, that prioritizing. So I'm a list maker, and I think that helps me a lot.
Awesome. So Sammy just decides to take a drink every single time I'm coming off mute. But so like I mentioned, Bria, one of our change makers who couldn't make it, did end up providing me with some of her answers that she asked me to share. So she shared with me in terms of how does she keep track of her calendar. And this is a quote. I have a hard copy planner that I write everything down week by week, such as work, due dates, and along with any plans that I may have made for that week. I find it much more efficient than my phone because I can't just clear the notification off the screen. With my planner, I literally take it everywhere I can. I relate a lot to a lot of the techniques you guys, or you folks. I'm gonna need that quarter jar too. That you folks.
I'm sorry. It's like when I yawn and then somebody else yawns. I just did that. Okay.
So I use a lot of the techniques that you all use as well. I keep a dry erase board for I update it week by week in terms of like classes and like what assignments I might have due. I utilize an Outlook calendar for due dates that are related to school and my internship and work. And then I utilize a Google calendar that connects to my phone for personal reminders and stuff that like doesn't really have to do with kind of like the professional side of my life, I guess. In spring semester, I did have a hard copy planner, and I really should be utilizing that more because writing it down kind of like just solidified it up here. So I really need to pick that back up. But then like if I have a busy day too, like I will create a to-do list. So it's like I just use different things like all the time. So Sarah kind of touched on our next question a little bit, but how do you prioritize tasks? I know for me personally, I can get the ball rolling on this one. I kind of prioritize tasks chronologically. So based on like classes or like if it's a task for my internship or work, kind of what needs to be done first versus like I have peers who like will do like their biggest thing because they're like, oh, I know I can write a paper like in 2 hours. Like I'll save that for like maybe the day it's due. But I have this project that I really need to spend a lot of time on. And so I'll get that done first. It just stresses me out to kind of do things out of order. I might be a little OCD. And so I do them chronologically.
I honestly don't know if I have good strategies for that. I've been in school for so long and I'm just kind of like, I do whatever I feel like I can do assignment wise. That might be because like I have ADHD and stuff. So like sometimes super big things, like a 10-page paper feels really daunting. And while realistically I should do it kind of a week at a time, I kind of get in that freeze mindset, which means then I can't do anything else. So for me, what works with that is I do smaller assignments and then I kind of hope there's enough time for the 10-page paper. I know that sounds really bad, but that's kind of how I slid by this whole time. Big stuff's hard.
Does it make you feel like you've got a task accomplished when you sometimes complete like the smaller assignments first?
Yes. Like for me, it's all about the dopamine of getting something done. So it's like realistically, a 10-page paper comes in multiple parts, but in my head, that's just one assignment. So if I'm only doing a part of it, I'm not really getting that like good job notification in my head. But if I do like the smaller paper, the smaller assignment first, I do kind of get that, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's easier to do the little stuff first, even if it means I don't do as well or work on the big stuff as much as I should. But worked out relatively fine for me so far.
It depends for me, and it's a very ineffective method. Well, not very ineffective, but probably temporarily effective. Um, I prioritize assignments and things I have to do based on how long they will take, how urgent they are, and how much energy I have. So, for example, a 2-page paper, I know I can knock that out in an hour, hour and a half. So I will probably push that down the line unless it's a paper that requires a lot of thought, which will go into probably the heaviness category, which is kind of slashed with urgency. Um, so I would probably start it sooner rather than later. Um, yeah, and then if I don't have the energy to think about it, I will push it off even more. I do procrastinate quite a bit, but so far I haven't turned in anything late. So that's why I said temporarily effective.
I think that's really cool. Like, I mean, there's a lot of thought. That's a thought process that, I mean, you've got a system.
I relate to being a heavy procrastinator though. Like that peer I mentioned who will put off a paper until the date's due is I'm that peer. Like so.
That's actually, I was going to bring that up, not about you, but like, that's actually literally a thing. Some people are like, do their best work when they wait till the last minute. And my daughter is that way. And then one of my colleagues is that way. And like, I am not that way. Like, I like Tyler, I'm like, no, I want to get it done way ahead of time. And then it's done. And I don't have to think about it. And then like that day, like if it's a presentation or something that day, I'll look at it and like tie it up with a pretty bow. But that's it, you know, like I've done all the hard work. And so that's why I like when things come up at the last minute, ooh, that stresses me out.
Mhm.
So like working with somebody or like I have a certain colleague that's not Brina that does really well
For the
like at the
clarification.
last minute and tries to change things at the last minute. And I'm like, oh no, I've been working on this for 2 weeks. We're not changing it now.
Mhm.
We're going on in 10 minutes, not changing. Drives me nuts.
Yeah, yeah. There's a fine balance, I think, in getting things done the same time that they're due versus like I've got 10 minutes before I'm turning this in or we're doing this presentation between like stress and best work. So
It's about like, what is it working for you? So like what Tyler said about it's working for me now, right?
yeah.
And so like until something happens where it's like, oh, that's not going to work for me in this, you know, whatever, then, you know, then do it. Cause it sounds like, I feel like everybody picks up little pieces
Mhm.
along the way of like what's worked and what hasn't. 'Cause like, remember when everybody was doing those weird grid books with the little squares in them? Was that not a thing? Yeah.
Bullet journal?
Yeah, bullet journal. And I just chose to try to do those bullet journals, and I thought that was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I couldn't figure out what do we write in it. They're just blank pages. There's no prompts. What? Just it's very confusing to me.
Good to know that bullet journals aren't your thing.
Yes.
Tried to buy one. Probably still sitting in the closet.
Sarah,
Does-
do you wanna?
Does anybody color code stuff? Because
Carrie does.
I don't know. There's a couple of thoughts here. I typically am an A-type personality. I'm typically very organized. And so when there's a lot of things going on in my life and I'm stressed out, for some reason during those times, I really struggle with organization and following through on like my priority list the way that I'm used to. And so I have found in like the last couple of weeks here, if I color code stuff in red, that means like I'm gonna be on fire if I don't get that stuff, taken care of. It's like red light, yellow light, green light on my on some of my screens. So I color code it.
I think that's cool. Brina knows I like to color code things because they get really stressed out when they go into Google Forms and there's like this rainbow and they're just like, what is happening? That's organized. So I color code my calendar, but not for that, like not for that same reason. So I have all these different projects and all these different funding sources, and my time is based on like if I get X amount of money for my time for a certain thing, I have to have it. Like I want to see in a week that I'm spending 25% on Changemakers stuff because that helps me be accountable. And that also helps me track projects. So like some weeks to be real heavy red, which is Changemakers. And then other, and then like purple for my interns. It's a nice soothing color. Heck is FSM blue. I mean, so like it's very, very rainbowy.
Yeah. I won't say I don't color code coordinate like any sort of calendar or list, but in working with my campus-based support coach from CETA Scholars, we do utilize, since we meet virtually a lot, like a 7-life domain model that showcases all 7. And then I will go in and color coordinate them either red, yellow, or green. And green means I'm good. We don't have to talk about this life domain this week. Yellow is I might have something to mention or a question. And then red is I urgently need to talk about this. And that's kind of how we structure our agenda for our meetings. And I find that super helpful. So Bria said that she prioritizes tasks by always putting schoolwork first, and I do what will be due the soonest. So similar to me, chronologically. School is always most important to me, and that is something that can't wait. I also start on my assignments early, even if it is just looking over the directions to get an idea.
That's smart.
Again, with the procrastination, if it's a paper, I don't look at the directions until I'm starting to write it. So,
yeah.
So the last question, unless you folks have any others that you would like to ask the group, is what is one piece or pieces of advice that you would give to someone else who wants to improve their time management skills?
I would say do what works best for you. Because I think we've all tried to adopt someone else's time management skills and it has not worked out because we are not that person. So we should really very much focus on what works best for us, and be kind to yourself. That covers like everything, but like if you miss a deadline, that's fine. You're learning. It's okay. It's not going to kill you probably. Just be nice to yourself, and let yourself learn how you work, and go from there.
I love that.
Totally
Solid
putting,
advice.
yeah, totally putting learn how you work on a t-shirt. That was good.
Yeah.
Very inspirational. Tilly, do you have any good advice you want to throw out here?
Mine would be very similar, because especially as someone with ADHD, I'll get a lot of like advice, and then it doesn't really work for me. And the biggest example I can think of is my partner's mom. I love her, but oh my gosh, it's very much that like, well, this works really well for me, so why can't you do that? And it's almost kind of like, I know she doesn't mean it like that, but it gets really shameful and makes me feel really bad. So it's just like, I think it would take time and effort to figure out what works for you. Like maybe a digital calendar doesn't work, but doing it physically does, or vice versa. Figuring that out is really hard and it can take a long time, and you can feel like you're failing, and other people might kind of make you feel like you're failing, but you're not. It's really important to find the stuff that works for you. It took me like years to figure out something that really kept me on top of my class schedule, and that's fine. This stuff is not instant, and it's good to be nice to yourself.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. Trial and error sometimes does the best job to figure out what does work best for you. So I get how you feel with like sometimes people think they're being helpful, but it can actually kind of make you feel bad. I can relate to that. So way to stay strong and do things your own way. It's obviously working really well. So good job.
Thank you.
I think the only advice that I want to throw out there is just I would agree with Tyler to give yourself grace and room to grow, but also room to fail, and not to really see failure as an obstacle that's going to hold you back, to learn from it and move on, leave it where it's at and move on. Don't dwell on it. So, yeah.
Well, I would just like to share what Bria said. So Bria's piece or pieces of advice, I would say find what works for you. So similar to what the rest of the group has to say. I've gotten a planner every year saying I would use it and never did until 2 years ago. I had to learn discipline within myself because I'm very forgetful. On Sunday nights, I set aside 20 to 30 minutes to write down anything I have that week, and I use colors. So she does color coordinate. Red is important or a priority. I stop to think when I see this color that this needs to be done if it's not crossed off. Green is work because I have to go to work. And yellow is what I would like to start or finish that week, but it is okay if it does not get done.
I promise I did not know her responses before tonight.
Yeah, that sounds like a good technique.
Yeah. Do you have any advice, Carrie?
My advice is really just to recognize when something's not working. So like, it's like, I'm thinking about, I write stuff down and then I also use my calendar, and I like the idea of highlighting things that I've written down, because that's like a piece where I'm like, I don't know that this writing stuff down is actually helpful. I just feel compelled to do it. So I think it's important to just check in with yourself and be like, is that still working for me? And
I don't know if I have any additional pieces of advice. I think you all gave really good advice. Learn how you work. Tyler, that was really awesome. I guess if I had to summarize my advice in like just a simple phrase that would be like someone would want to put on a t-shirt, is just try everything. I think it's like important what, Tilly and Tyler and Sarah and everyone is saying, that, what works for you might not work for a single other soul that you know. And that's perfectly okay. Advice you receive might not be helpful. Carrie, I think it's important what you said too about, not kicking a dead horse, because you might be like, this works for everybody else and I want it to work for me. And it just is not going to if it doesn't work. So does anyone else have anything else they'd like to add or any questions they have? All right, well, thank you so much for joining us and watching this video. Join us next week for budgeting.